Hey, welcome to Rock and Recovery. Today's second guest is Massimo Rigotti, the founder of the Sober Method. So let's hear what he has. Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you today?
Good. Hopefully, I didn't butcher your last name too much.
It's Rigotti, but that's cool.
Okay. Well, I said with the longer O. So tell me about the Sober Method. I know I've heard about it, but what led you to creating this method, actually?
Well, the genesis of this was really my own frustration with AA. That's really where it came from, is that I just felt like, is this it? Is this all it's going to be? Is I'm going to be sober, going to go to meetings the rest of my life and talk about how I used to be an alcoholic. And it just didn't seem very fulfilling to me. And I needed something that was better and was focused on growth. So I kind of just came out of thin air. It was actually New Year's Eve when it came to me. It's like, what if I could take my mind and treat it like a machine and like continuously improve it in some form or fashion? And so that's how I charted this all out. And that became the Sober Method, which is stoic, observe, behavior, execute, and restore. And like I said, it flows through in a like the Deming cycle in manufacturing. So you start with stoic, and you find something that you're trying to work on, a thought or a belief or an idea, and then you observe how that applies within your own life. And then you map the behavior on how you want to change or alter it. And then you execute to test. And if it goes the way you want it to, great. And if it doesn't, and you end up starting to slip up, you better go back to observe and take another look at what you're doing to deal with your triggers. Once you get done with execute and things are working great for that particular thing you're trying to fix, you move on to restore, which is a little bit like the making amends steps, where how did this behavior impact others in your life? And then reaching out to try to make amends for those things. But of course, forgiveness does not equal we're going to restore our relationship. It just means we're good and we're going to move on with our life. And then you go back to stoic and start all over again. I'm about to cross 150 rounds through my own method. I'm at 149 at the moment. Okay. So it definitely works. And little by little, you work to improve smaller and smaller things about yourself. I mean, at first it was just like, how am I going to avoid any situation that might make me want to have a drink? And now it's down to, how can I avoid a situation where someone might start an argument with me, and how would I handle that better? It's like you're down into the deep minutia of one's existence once you do it.
So what was I know you struggled with addiction yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What was that like for you?
Well, it was a lifelong struggle. I started drinking when I was 18, and about 25 that became drinking and cocaine, and that ultimately spiraled for out of control when I was 39. Ended up homeless on the streets, and that was quite the experience. And I was on the streets for 16 months, stood up sober, and it's been a rocket ride back to the top. I would say that I was a high functioning alcoholic, because I had business. I started businesses. I sold companies. I transacted at the highest levels. So it never really felt like it was a problem until it was so much that it became my existence. Like I lived to drink and do blow.
Right. So when did you notice it started affecting your life?
About 2 years before the wheels came off. So about 2012 is when I noticed that things were going in a direction that was unsustainable. I could not hold it together like I used to. And I knew things were going to come apart. And somehow I managed to hold it together for about 2 more years after that.
Wow. So what was you like? Why the change? Did you were just tired of enough's enough? I can't handle this. What initiated the change?
I didn't feel good about myself in any way. And as I looked around, I realized that I realized that I didn't have anything that had any strength or confidence in. I had done a lot of things and succeeded in ways that a lot of people don't, but that doesn't make you confident, truly. There was something underlying, something damaged, something that didn't quite fit in my own existence. And I was struggling to find that. That makes it, when you're trying to cover up for something, like the whole world, I'm a fraud and someone's going to find out that I really am not this strong, confident business owner.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it was like. It was like wearing a mask at all times. And
Mhm.
eventually the cost of keeping that mask on was drinking nearly 24 hours a day. I mean, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and have a shot of Jack Daniels because it was sitting right on my nightstand. It, it,
Wow.
it was just, it was all consuming. And that's when I knew that I had an issue, but I wasn't ready to fix it yet. And I made some small attempts in 2013, but and even managed to sober up actually for about 2 weeks, a couple of times, but I just could not hold it together. And because I didn't understand what was going on. I just, I just cut out the drinking and drugs. I'm going to be fine. It doesn't work that way.
Hmm. So I know you said you struggled with AA. You didn't quite like AA. I don't think a lot of people do. There's a lot of it. I mean, I'm not one to say I think all recovery is great, but I also, think that AA has got a lot. They need to modernize, I think. And so what made you found? Why'd you found your own recovery method? Why? Why?
Well, at first it really wasn't even meant to be anything other than kind of like this. I needed a sidecar, so to speak, to help me continue to go to AA. But then I realized that my own method was working better than AA. And then I was telling people in group about it, and they're like, "Oh, this is pretty cool, man." And I was like, "Is it? I guess it is." And so really, it was just the necessity of needing something that filled the gaps. And you hit it on the head. It doesn't fit in a lot of ways for a lot of people. I'm huge. I have a couple friends who are in AA and go religiously, and it's that what they need. And they know everything about my method, but they just prefer that. Great. They're still sober. That's the thing that's so important to me. But if AA is not working for you, that's why I present this as an alternative. I mean, maybe this would work better for you because it looks at your whole existence. It looks at you holistically, as opposed to I'm going through a bunch of steps in this order in order to achieve this goal. And instead of reworking and rewiring your entire mind to accept the stimulus of life in a different way, so that you can output yourself in the way that you really want to present yourself to the world. And you have the confidence to stand in your own skin without needing to lean into anything to feel whole. I think that that's what so many of us,
So it's
at.
basically recovery without the higher power is what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, that would be a good way to summarize it, because it doesn't, AA doesn't fit for a lot of people because of the religious aspect of it. Mine is ground in Stoicism, which I guess one could argue is a religion in its own right, so to speak. But your higher power, there is a belief in a structure and a hierarchy in Stoicism, of course, but not with all of the pomp and circumstance. So it's attractive to those who who are religious or have no religion. That's kind of the genius of the system. So it doesn't set anyone aside and say, this wouldn't work for you because you're of a different faith than Christian.
so the atheist with no belief would probably uh, use this method better than if they went to an AA because it's basically self-reliant.
Yes, exactly. And it's so often what I hear. Those who have adopted my method will tell me that the reason they did is because they felt like they weren't pressured into believing something they didn't. They needed help. And I get that. I understand that. In my own personal journey, when I was beginning with AA, I was taking my own walk within my own faith, and I was at the place where so many of the atheists and the agnostics are, not wanting to believe in this. And now I've found myself as someone who has re-established his faith. And so it's a very different view. I've walked that walk over the last 9 years of my own sobriety.
So if it's relying on self, didn't we rely on ourself while we're in addiction and it just kept us in addiction? So wouldn't that be like contradictory, relying on yourself to stay sober while relying on yourself to be, that's almost like the definition of insanity to me. I'm just asking questions. I'm sorry. It works.
That is a great question. That is a fantastic question. I mean, I couldn't been teed up better for that one. The reason that it is different is because you're looking within yourself to determine what is causing the behavior. Okay. So once you figure out why did I reach for that drink? Oh, well, I reached for that drink because I felt abandoned when I was 6 years old, when I was left at the mall by myself for 3 hours. I mean, that is literally, I'm giving you an example from one of my clients a few years ago. That ended up being the genesis of their alcoholism.
Wow.
So, I mean, which is an amazing thing. But if you dig within your own self, you can find things that you push down and push out of the way and out of the light. And so your accountability to yourself for this young lady that I was working with, she had ground her entire existence into this abandonment challenge that she faced 20 years before. And everything that defined her was defined based on how she felt in that moment and then coping with that. And so that turned into smoking cigarettes at 13 and finding alcohol when she was 15. And, it just continued to spiral until it was drugs, alcohol, everything that she could get her hands on, all to now be today, 4 years sober approximately.
Wow.
So, I think that's exciting.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're so hung up on, let's use the same example of that abandonment at 5 years old or whenever it happened, you're going to be so focused on that going through life that it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. It doesn't matter how long this person would stick around, you're still going to have that belief because it's, like I said, you're so focused on it. That's all you can see.
Yeah.
So to refocus, I understand how the sober method could help you refocus and bring you to that it's almost like a step 4 for those AA people, a true and honest moral inventory of self, so it's almost like a step 4, I've never been to AA, so but so it's more validating your feeling and then working through it.
Yes, exactly. And understanding those deep intricacies that work within your mind, and that's where observing that in the O step is so important, and seeing when do I feel this particular way and how does that present itself, and then testing out that behavior and starting out possibly by role playing, but eventually putting yourselves in situations where you normally would drink. One thing that always would be a trigger after I became sober was going to an event, a social event and networking. That was like automatic. A drink was in my hand. How do you attend an event if you're not drinking? And that was a huge challenge. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put myself in a place where I know I have never once been not drunk. Not once have I ever even entered the room of one of these networking events, not at least a little tipsy. So I had enough confidence to walk through it and to show up sober, completely sober, and then drink like water the whole time. That was, oh, wow. It was tough for the first few minutes, but after it
was rewarding.
It was so rewarding. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I never felt so good about myself when I left that evening. And I remembered everything. I remembered people's names. I was able.
You remember where you parked your car?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You remembered, okay, that's not a good idea. It does start to get rewarding when we the little wins, the little victories. And, the more we celebrate those little wins, the better they are, the more we can focus on the positive instead of all the negative going on in our life and in the world, because, hey, let's face it, we all get wrapped up. The world gets wrapped up in negative. That's just the way we are. We don't see anything good happening, but do one bad thing, it's all attention focused. You're bad now because of that bad act, So yeah, that's a very rewarding feeling when you do that. And I did this. Oh my God, I did this. So tell me why you've gone through your own program 100 and almost 50 times or 5 times or
Well, because it's one of these deals where you're looking for smaller and smaller things to fix about yourself. And I leaned into this in large part because I noticed others using the method for things other than sobriety.
okay.
I had somebody tell me that they were able to stop chewing their nails by using the sober method. And I thought that was the wildest thing I'd ever heard in my life. But then it got me thinking about other ways that I could apply it. And so people are using it for device addiction, which has become, of course, a huge thing in today's world, which is a challenge.
Yeah, very, because everybody's got their head glued or on one. We are all rocking around with almost looking down. Nobody's looking up anymore. And it's scary because that's why they had to pass laws. No texting while driving, come on, a device, phone addiction, device addiction, FOMO, that's all real things now. And I never had to deal with those when I was growing up. It was, okay, are we going to go outside today, even though it's raining or snowing, or, are we going to get in trouble because we didn't get home when the lights came on,
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. The old advertisement to make sure I remembered we existed.
Yes. It's 9 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? But so during this method, what was the process of creating this method? How'd you do it? Like the steps, the O method or the sober method. What was that like creating that?
Well, believe it or not, it was something that came to me relatively all at once. And in the very beginning, before it was called the sober method, it was actually a 10-step method called the Flavors of Confidence method. And because fundamentally, this is about rebuilding your confidence and the ability to feel good within your own skin. I firmly believe that confidence is that baseline requirement that that we all need in order to be able to function without leaning into anything. I really just truly believe this. And so that 10-step method was a little bit more detailed in each step, but I found it very difficult to teach because it was one of these, well, what's step 4? And then somebody had rattle off the AA step 4. And I was like, okay, this is not working. And so I thought I've got to find something better. And I thought, well, maybe I should call it the sober method. But of course I was like, there's no way sober can be available at this day and age. And then I go out and look, and lo and behold, it is. So I'm like, here we go.
So, the 1 through 3 on the AA is basically, I can't, he can, so let him, so does that, so your method starts like on step 4, basically.
Yes, basically. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. Hey, I would have loved to try it, honestly, because I did it cold turkey. I recovered by talking to people.
Wow.
That's how I'm doing it, is talking to people and helping the next person. So, and it's worked. It works for me. It's like yours is very unconventional. I'm sure people looked at you like, you're freaking crazy. What are you talking about? You can't stay sober without a program. I hear this all the time. You can't stay sober without a program. You're going to fail. You're going to be a statistic. You need a program.
Yep.
But however, I challenge that because if I'm working a program within myself daily,
Hmm.
and helping the next person, what kind of program is that? You know, what kind of program is that? That's exactly the type I needed,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Everybody's is different. And I think, and you just touched on something that's so fundamental within uh, that's why it's the sober method. It's not the sober program, because it's a methodology. It's a framework, would be maybe even a better way to describe it. But calling it the sober framework might be a little difficult when I'm trying in a marketing way, but who knows? Anyway, because when I am working with someone, the way they use the sober method is totally different from the way someone else is, because the how they're framing up their existence and what they need to find that confidence and to remain sober is different than what someone else needs. And so it's very customizable, whereas in AA, as we both know, it's very rigid. Well, why
Yes.
didn't you do this? Well, you have to do that. If you don't do that, then you can't possibly do this. And like, yeah, well, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
and
And you can't skip a step.
no,
Far and if it's the old school AA, then any substance is bad,
yes,
coffee included, because you know what? It's a mind altering substance. I don't care who you are, it does alter your mood.
yes,
And so there's that. Yet coffee was acceptable,
right. And
you know,
cigarettes.
and cigarettes were acceptable. Yet they're also leading causes of those are big addictions right there. Caffeine,
Yep.
nicotine are two biggest widely uncommunicated addictions, because hey, some of those are some of the hardest to quit because it's not illegal and it's not really harming your body. I've
Supposedly.
never I've never drank a cup of coffee and then went and done something stupid, you know. Yeah.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
Well, sometimes, but not that, no, nothing harmful, stupid,
Yes, yes,
nothing
exactly.
that's going to lead me, end up me in jail, or, getting arrested, or, ooh, what did I do? Stupid,
Yeah.
So but I like this method. And you wrote a book about it?
Yes, yes. Flavors of Confidence Sober Method. And we touched on the device angle as well. I'm working on my third book after doing a lot of research, which will be just about device addiction. You applying the sober method for device addiction. I think that fundamentally that is touching a lot of people now more than alcohol and drugs do, but the life changing ways that you could change more of society if we can get them to get off their screens and
People
have.
don't go outside anymore.
That's right. The challenge that I found was that so often it's the attachment, and it's the same way in alcohol and drugs. The phone is no different, and I during the research to write the book, and it's been interesting in working with people who I would take their phone away from them, and within minutes they would visibly shake, with like they had DT, like they were
Mm,
withdrawing from, because they were constantly attached. It was always in their hand. And
wow.
that's amazing that it can do that. So it's truly a mind challenge. And so if we go back into the substances and we're talking about alcohol, that's why I believe that the sober method has some good fundamental steps, because you're looking within your mind to try to determine why did I want to take a drink at that moment? And then like breaking that down, and you're doing a deeper and deeper dive into yourself. Like, well, I wanted to take a drink because I didn't feel good about myself. And most people would stop there. But then what we're asking you to do is take the next step and say, well, why didn't you feel good about yourself? Well, I didn't feel good about myself because I was wearing that blue shirt that I don't really like. Oh, okay. Well, why were you wearing? I mean, like, keep doing the
Right.
whys until you dig down and find out that, oh, you got made fun of at your 7th birthday because you were wearing a blue shirt and you threw up on it. Oh, okay. Now we're cooking with something, like that.
Right.
That's where those deep memories are. And once you find them, you're like, why do we even care about that anymore? And then you can push that aside, realize that these things don't matter. If you look at memories, and I wrote this in my first book, with that was that if you put two people in the same situation and then a year later ask them what happened, they're going to tell you two different stories. And the reason they'll tell you two different stories is because we have lived existences. And when we witness something, we witness it with all of our own beliefs and our past feelings about certain things. So we could both watch a car crash and the things that happen afterwards, and we would tell two different stories a year from now. And it would be based on what was important to us. And that's what's so interesting. So I ask people to remember that the past is just as malleable as the future. So instead of leaning into like, oh, it was so horrible when this happened in my past. Why? I mean, like, can't you just rewrite the story and say this happened and then I made fun of that kid and we all laughed it off? I mean, you can rewire your mind into whatever belief you want to have.
Right.
Because that's what it is at the end of the day. A memory is nothing more than your imagination of the past based on a few little things. It's no different than thinking about the future. So don't live your life today based on things and that may or may
never
not
come.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And I tell a lot of people, because I talk to a lot of people, and, some of them are just have never been addicted to anything in their life. And I'll tell them, well, try to turn off your phone for 24 hours and not pick it up. And they're like, oh shit, never mind. Can't do that. You got to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's what an addict, that's an addict, is searching. We need it. That phone is our drug, and it's just that easy to compare, and I think this is a great way to, what's nice about it is you can do it at your own pace. You can do it by yourself and keep yourself accountable, which is hard. So how did you stay accountable to yourself? If, it was us that was the problem, how did you keep yourself accountable?
The discipline is a big piece of this, of course, and it comes down to writing down anytime that it was a lot of journaling more than anything. So like, I was tempted because of this, and then breaking down those feelings and saying, okay, why was I tempted by that today? And trying to understand, like, okay, I'll approach that differently tomorrow. It's a lot of work. But doing anything worth it in life is a lot of work. So, and I don't want to sugarcoat the fact that this requires self-discipline and it requires you to lean into it. Now, one thing that would be great, and I think will naturally happen, is more and more people are starting to use the sober method, and is that groups are naturally going to form, and it's starting to happen online, and I'm trying to kick that off. I've got a Reddit a group now, and it's growing rather quickly, and I like seeing that, because it shows me that there are people out there that are utilizing the method and are starting to reach out for one another, because I think that sense of community is really important. But it's no different than AA when it started. It took a long time before people formed groups. You have to have the idea and enough people start believing in it that it clusters together. But the good thing is, it's today we have communities online that allows us to connect with people all over the world. And I think that is super helpful. But the accountability piece, the accountability piece, I work with a lot of high performers, and you just mentioned something that was so important for me. I, as a business owner, felt like I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I was suffering in the dark, so to speak, because I couldn't say to any of my friends who were either suppliers or other business owners, hey, I've got this really bad drinking problem. Oh, yeah. I lose an account.
Well, let me go somewhere else for my business.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So you can't. I work with doctors and lawyers, engineers, the pharmacists, and the reason that they really suffer in the dark, because can you imagine being in a smaller community of maybe 25,000 people, and you're one of like 5 doctors, and you show up in an AA meeting? Do you think you're going to have a practice tomorrow? No,
right.
Not a chance.
Right.
And so those are the individuals that I work with a lot one-on-one, because they don't have really anywhere else to turn. So my hope is as the community grows online, they'll be able to turn to an online community and but at the same time, this is something that you can work on by yourself, as you said.
Okay.
You don't have to talk to anybody about it, as long as you have the self-discipline to stick with it.
Right. And going on with that, you got to be super honest. Was there like a trial and error phase of this? Did you like, all right, so let's fudge a little bit. Let's write this down. Okay, I'm good. Was there like a trial and error phase of it?
Well, a little bit, but more of the testing as it formulated into its its current formed form came from working with others and realizing, okay, that's not going to work properly.
Okay, got to reward this one.
Yeah, exactly. I can't suggest that somebody just walk into a bar and see whether or not they can resist a drink. Not a good idea.
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's a trigger. I've had enough. Give me the beer.
Yeah, exactly. But it is really wild. And I just a couple of weeks ago was out with a friend that I hadn't seen in years, and he wanted to go to the bar and watch a game. And I accepted. And I went to the bar and sat there and drank some iced tea while he had like 7 beers and sat right there at the bar rail. And all I could think was, man, this is a really different experience when you're not drinking. And I didn't have a single trigger, but I'm 9 years, almost 10 years down the road here and being sober, and I have absolutely no interest in drinking. Like it's behind me. And I think a lot of that also comes from the self-affirmation in the sober method. Is there's no saying that I'm an alcoholic. I never say that anymore. And that became a real sticking point for me when I got to the 5-year mark with AA, is I refused to say that. And I was asked to not return until I did.
Wow.
So I never went back.
Right.
Because I don't feel like once you've put it behind you, it's behind you. Why on earth would I
Why do you want to live in the past?
Yeah. And why do I want to affirm something? In every other part of mental health, we constantly are talking about positive affirmation. So why in this one really small place in mental health, in addiction, do we stand up and say, I'm a drug addict, I'm an alcoholic? Well, all you're doing is basically setting yourself up for the future.
Labeling yourself for failure.
That's right. Exactly. And so no, don't do it. I don't even tell people that I used to be an addict at all. If I meet somebody new in person and they have no idea who I am or that I wrote the sober method, I don't at all tell them. And sometimes I have to prove it. They're like, there's no way that you used to be a drug. and then I tell them
that a good feeling though? Isn't that a good feeling? You think me was never, thanks, that's a good feeling when they're, oh, you're doing so good. I'm like, you think so? I don't think so, but thank you, but yeah, I can understand why that label that I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic, instead of I'm in recovery for, but when does that label end? When does that label ever end? If, I try to think of it like cancer. All right.
Mm-hmm.
When you have cancer, it goes into remission. That means you don't have it anymore. You're not going to say, oh, my cancer's in remission. And well, you're going to say that for the first, but when does it become such a no more label? Like how far along do you have to be to quit thinking that you're that you're in recovery still and not necessarily in remission? Because it could come back. It could come back just like cancer. It could come back, so when does that, where do you draw the line there? How do you deal with that?
I draw the line at about a year is what I suggest, is if you've made it a year without drinking and you don't feel regularly triggered by things that used to trigger you, you're sober. And so start affirming that you're sober. And in the run up to that, it's never I'm in recovery or I'm a recovering alcoholic or I was an alcoholic. It's like I'm working on my sobriety. Oh, okay, good for you. That That's a positive. See, like right there, you're going to get more positive out of someone that you tell that to than you would by
Right.
saying, I'm a recovering alcoholic. Oh, you're one of those. I mean,
Mhm.
like we know the stigma. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not great, and we want to be open and honest about it. But if you tell someone I'm working on my sobriety, oh, that's great. You didn't tell them that you used to be an alcoholic. You're just telling them
Right.
you're trying to be sober. That for all they know, at that point, you could be one of these I had a beer a week people, and I'm working on my sobriety. Oh, okay, cool, good for you.
Yeah. And that's amazing that, I mean, like I said, I just think of it because I know I don't have cravings anymore. I
Hmm.
know that I'm strong in my recovery,
Right.
and I don't have a problem because I did 20 years in prison. I don't have a problem saying that I was a drug addict. Everybody knew anyway. I never had a problem with saying now that I was that I hey, I'm a recovering drug addict, don't have a problem with it. It doesn't affect me that way, but I can understand how it does a lot of people moving forward, especially somebody like in a business sense like you. I can understand how that would negatively impact your life with always that stigma of being, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic in working on my sobriety. I can understand how that would affect you in
Mhm.
business, not only in business, but your self-worth, because
Yeah.
now it's lowering, you know. And so what would you say to somebody that's thinking about getting sober, not really not liking AA because they're a bunch of old guys telling you what you need to do, and hey, probably not going there for the best reasons anyway. Maybe a judge told them, yeah, you need to get your card, you need to get a signature every day. And what would you tell that person that's trying to do it a different way? What would you suggest?
I would, well, obviously I'm going to suggest my own method. I'm going to suggest that you go pick up a copy of my book and use it as your own personal Bible of how I'm going to get out of this, because it works. It's small. It's just over 120 pages, and you can carry it with you everywhere you go to refer to, uh, or go to my website and get started there, sobermethod.com. But the like I said before, the most important thing is that you're working towards something. And I think that if you just stop where you are right now and say, do I want to continue doing this? Is this the life that I really want to live and lead? And if you say no, it's not, then it's time to try something different. And find that one thing that you can push yourself enough to ensure that it gets done. You have to want it. And I think that
Mhm.
that is the thing that it gets missed a lot, because you have a lot of false starts and stops. I know I did, especially near the end. It was like wrestling with myself to get to the finish line. I actually died. I was gone for over 6 minutes in August of 15. And within 3 weeks, I was drinking again. So,
Wow.
even death wasn't enough to get me
Even
to.
death wasn't your rock bottom.
No, death was not my rock bottom. Rock bottom actually was waking up one morning and saying, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And that was it. I mean, it sounds like, oh, well, that's kind of anticlimactic. In a way, it
No,
was.
for us in addiction and us trying to get sober, we know there's a basement floor to rock bottom,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter what it is. Everybody's is different. And it is that waking up and saying, I'm sick of myself. I'm
Yeah.
sick of what this has taken from me. I'm sick of the way I treat it. I'm treating people and being treated. I'm
Mhm.
sick of myself,
Yeah.
which is also why we are in addiction a lot of the times. But you know what? I got sick and tired of, being sick and tired, which is so true, though. It's so true that we can't stand ourselves while we're an addict. We couldn't stand ourselves while we're sober. But if we're working on it in recovery, then, you start working and living with yourself. You start to let shit go. A lot of
Mhm.
times we have a problem just letting go, and living for today. Where depression is the past, anxiety is the future, and we're stuck in between both of them. We're depressed and we got anxiety, and then we're more depressed because we got anxiety. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
it's,
exactly.
let that shit go, live for today, and just work on yourself today. That's all you got to do is just live today. That's it. That's
The
the easy.
anxiety, yeah, the anxiety that you're talking about, though, is almost a scourge on society today, especially in this country. Is everybody is so worried about what might
Mm,
happen at some future point that never will ever happen. I don't even think about what's going to happen tomorrow most of the time. I plan for things that I want to achieve, but I never sit around and go, I wonder what would happen if this happened, and then how would I react if nah. I
right.
never I don't have those thoughts. Now I used to a little bit, but when I listen to some people today talk about the things that they worry about are going to happen tomorrow, like how on earth do you even function? That
Right.
most of the things that you worry about will never happen. I'm like 99.9% of the things that you worry about and waste your time thinking about will never happen. And the same goes for the past. Your depression is based on a bunch of things that may or may not have happened as well. And if you can look at yourself and say, the only moment that really matters is right now. And this isn't I'm not encouraging you to like just do what feels best for you. I mean,
Right.
you got to keep some guardrails on yourself as well and say what would be best for me in 10 years and then do that, but live in the present while you're doing it, if that makes sense. And goal planning
Absolutely.
is a big component in this in the execute step actually of the sober method, where we actually lay out life plans and work to attain those as you work back through the system over and over again. So not as you're improving your mind for your sobriety, you're also improving your overall your diet, your exercise, your planning in life. It's giving a lot of life tools that I think have been forgotten. I've completely cut out processed foods from my life. I never thought that would be a thing that I would say, or that I would even be interested in doing such a thing. But
Right.
the most amazing thing happened as I started to do that is that I got sharper. And so, and I've noticed that I'm not alone in that. So that there's something to be said for that. And then exercise. I used to just sit around at a desk all the time, and now I'm very active. And 3 years ago, I decided to become a competitive figure skater of all crazy things. But
How's that working? I mean, I think that's awesome, but how's that?
it's going great. It's going great. I'm hoping that I'm going to land my axle here in the next year. But I mean,
That's awesome.
for someone who just turned 50, is it's wild to be out there and competing and actually beating people that are half my age, and
Wow.
that's what feels really awesome, to go to a competition and actually place higher than someone half my age. It's like,
Right. With a whole lot more experience.
yes.
That's awesome. I think that's one of those goals. Those are the small wins. We set small goals so we can hit them, so we can get the confidence to hit those bigger goals. you
Yes.
know and it's just a build up to where we want to get. We just got to build that confidence back up, like you were saying. That confidence, we got to build up that confidence that we can achieve these goals,
Mhm.
that we can hit our small goals. And that's why I say celebrate. Anytime you set a small goal, celebrate it. Make yourself feel good. Get your whatever those hormones or endorphins or whatever you want to call them in your head. Make yourself feel good in a very positive way that you just hit that goal. And remember that feeling. So when you start hitting those small goals, you can reach for that big one, and you know what it feels like. You can get it. It's that confidence that you can achieve those. That's where a lot of us addicts lack, is that confidence again.
Now the challenge there too, though, and I have to kind of warn people, and I caution everyone on this: don't share everything that you're up to.
No,
I mean,
don't
like,
let everybody know, because
oversharing will kill your drive. It will kill everything. Work in the darkness, share the
yeah,
little wins in the light, and then get a couple people that are just excited to hear about it, and then put your head back down and work on the next one. And
right.
don't share your progress. Share the result. The result is
Share.
what's like awesome. Yeah.
Yes. And that's very true, because the more people know, the more people you got to worry about and there's that anxiety. Now there goes your lack, there goes your drive and determination to get it done,
Mhm.
because all these people know, and all these people are watching me, ready for me to fail, you know, and yeah, it's true. It sucks. And, so yeah, the less people we let know, or I should say, the less amount, better quality people we let
There you
know.
go.
We
Yes.
quality over quantity any day,
Yes.
so yeah, pick a couple good close friends that you can trust, because we're building that trust back, and let them in. Hey, I'm going to try something new, and when you succeed, because they're already going to want the best for you, and you already know that they're going to want the best for you. And when you succeed, you share that victory with them, you know?
Yes. And then, of course, the other thing to remind yourself at all times is that you're the product of those that you're closest around, your five closest
Absolutely.
friends, as they say all the time. And if like the old adage, if you're the smartest person in the room, find another
Find a
room.
new route. Yep.
If you're the most sober person in the room, you need to find another room where you're
Right.
the least sober in the room, and then find another room until you work yourself up higher and higher. Those are the types of little things that you can do. Is just your environment around you will shape you. And if you're around, if you put yourself in a situation where you're a little uncomfortable, but you're with a lot of successful people,
That's
you
a
will
good place to be.
become successful because they want that for you. And
Yeah.
then once you become successful, you might be middle of the pack and you're like, oh, wow, I'm doing pretty good. Well, it might be your drive to push yourself to number one in that group of friends. And so,
And make
yeah,
sure your definition of success is unique to you.
bing,
Don't let somebody else tell you what successful is, because that might not be successful to you. That might not be. My success is surviving today. You know, if I survive today, I'm successful.
yep.
You know, now I dumb it down to even dumber than that. You can't soar with freaking eagles hanging around with chickens. You know, Plain and simple.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, that's totally true. But I think that from an aspirational standpoint too, it really helps to see yourself move within a group and to rise around people who care about what you're trying to accomplish. We get
Yes.
locked up in social media today by sharing lots of nonsense that will gather a lot of people who are haters, and nobody wants to see you fail more. And it's sad to say this, but it's true. No one wants to see you fail more than the people you're probably close to when you were an addict. That because
Yes.
they will latch on to you. Don't leave me. Stay here and be an
Right.
addict with me forever, right?
I need
And
somebody to share my misery. I need
and
somebody that I can make fun of to make myself feel better.
yep.
So hey, you're way worse than I am. Stick around, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's that's probably one of the most often asked questions is how do I find new friends? How do I
They will come.
and they will come. And sometimes you have to walk alone for a little bit, but if you find new things to do, then and you immerse yourself in it, you'll build new friend groups and you'll end up in new places that you didn't realize that you could be before. And I think that that's a fundamental building block to
It
your
is.
recovery.
For me, it's like I know that people will start recognizing that you're doing good,
Mhm.
and the people that want to be around you will come and make it known that they want to be around you, because you're doing good, not because you're doing bad, and not because you're just worse than me, and not for anything other than, hey, that's somebody I should probably know, because look at him, he's successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if you're not in your own mind, but that person that thinks you are is gonna he wants to they want to be around you, because you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people that look up to both of us, right? And even
There,
though I'll admit I'm a work in progress and I plan
yeah,
to
oh yeah,
always be a work in progress because if you're not trying to improve yourself always, then
you're stagnant.
you're stagnant. And I think as I look back at my life previously, the place where I was continuously improving was the business aspect of my life, but my own self, the thing that ran the machine, without me being healthy, I couldn't continue to succeed. And as that fell apart, as me, the individual physically started falling apart, everything else started to decline. And
Mhm.
I that was the wake up call, as we alluded to earlier. And now being able to rebuild and say, look, if I keep myself healthy and my mind healthy and I'm positive about where I'm going, what's really, really interesting to me is the fact that all the other business stuff that I used to just slave to try to make happen has become easy. It's like,
Mhm.
and now the hard things are, how do I achieve more? How do I get a stronger sense of myself? How do I, I've turned all that focus that used to be outward inward. And
Yeah.
it's a constant work on me, as opposed to a constant work on the things that I have created. And naturally what's happened is I improve, and the way that I see myself, the world around me is just like naturally improving. And I've noticed that I've lost friends along the way in my own sobriety journey over the last nearly 10 years. And I haven't really stopped to think about it. I was thinking about somebody the other day. I'm like, I wonder what happened to them. It's been like 6 years since I heard from them. They just like literally,
Wow.
the people that see where you're going, they will naturally detach themselves from you if you don't engage them. The ones that are trying to pull you down, they just naturally will decouple and say, that guy, he's going places I never will be. And I think that that's the strength of focusing on yourself. Don't worry about others, worry about what's going on with you and where you can take yourself.
Yes. And stick to your boundaries. Boundaries are very big in recovery. You got to stick to them. If somebody doesn't respect your boundaries, that means they don't respect you. So get rid of them. Distance
Amen.
yourself, you know.
Amen.
And is there anything else you want to say to everybody out there?
I just want to say is there's no better time to start and look at your own sobriety than right now. If you're thinking about taking that drink or doing that line or or smoking that whatever, I mean, just stop for a second and say, is this really what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? Is this really where I want to be going? And if it isn't, then make a change. Today is as good a day as any to start that path to your sobriety. Take a chance, go to an AA meeting, go to sobermethod.com, pick up a copy of my book. I'm here. Like I mentioned, go out to Reddit. Sober Method is the group. Join, have a conversation. I interact with everyone personally. I will do that as long as I humanly can keep up with it. Eventually that might become difficult, but I'm going to do it for as long as I can. So I really enjoy interacting with everybody who's trying to find their sobriety.
Well, I appreciate you being up here, and I look forward to talking to you a lot more. And that's Rockin' Recovery. Keep rocking your recovery, and we'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.